Villagers, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. If you are new here, you are welcome. Please subscribe, hit the notification and select all. You need to listen to this very carefully. A Ghanaian lawmaker, Sam George, stood at a major international conference and asked some of the deepest, most uncomfortable questions of our time. He did not come to play politics. He came to expose how the modern global system is actively trying to destroy African culture, our children, our language, and our future. Today, we are breaking down his exact points and looking at the deep historical reality behind this cultural war. Let's look at the first massive warning Sam George brings out. He points directly to the modern rise of artificial intelligence and technology. He asks a critical question: who is programming these systems and whose values are being fed into them? When you look at the deep facts, technology is not neutral. Right now, the global algorithm and AI systems are being built outside of Africa. They are encoded with foreign values, foreign history, and foreign worldview. Sam George warns that if we sit back and let outside forces control the technology our children use every day, we are allowing them to completely erase our local languages and our history. Historically, the fastest way to conquer a nation is not through weapons, but by taking away their language and rewriting their culture.
African languages make up only 2%. And so tell me how we're going to be able to translate our future to our young people. Now, the problem here is AI is driven by data. Artificial intelligence is only as good as the data that it generates. 80% of African personalized data is processed outside the continent. And that's why, as Minister for Communication, we've given an instruction that every data that is hosted or that involves Ghanaian national data must be hosted locally. And we've put a ban and a stop to hosting of our national data outside in data centers outside of our country. We will host our own data in our own country. The estimated value of African data that is being mined externally is $40 billion a year. $40 billion. That's the value of our data that's being generated every year. How much of that comes to Africa as royalties from big tech? 0%. Not one pesewa comes back to us. 5 of the top tech companies, American companies, process African data. And just 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump signed an executive instrument, an executive order, mandating that all new AI applications must be submitted 30 days before they go public to the US government. Ask yourself, why is the US government interested in the AI solutions and tools that are coming to the African continent? Ask yourself, and I see my executive director for the Data Protection Commission is in the room here. I referred to him a memo that had been, or an agreement that had been sent to the government of Ghana by the US government on health data. Sadly, some African countries had already signed. When that came up at cabinet, I said to the cabinet, that is not a health agreement, it's a data agreement. And we did a report in 24 hours and submitted to the president. And I'm proud that our president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, wrote to the US government and said, take your money, Ghana will keep our data. We will not sign that agreement. Because a US mandated health agreement that asked us to submit Ghanaian health data to US government for the next 30 years gave us no control over our own citizens' health data and said that any dispute we had will be settled by US law and not Ghanaian law. Tell me why they need that data. Very simple. US health tech companies are producing medication that is not working for the African continent. And they need your health data to be able to design the medication that they will sell to you and make profit. And that's why they offered 100 million, 200 million to all African states to hand over our African data. Members of Parliament here, if your governments have not signed yet, lead the opposition to that. African data must remain African. There are 5 concrete threats that I'll highlight here. Child sexualization, anti-family ideological capture. I could take my time and go into all of this, but we don't have a lot of time, so I'll just quickly run through them. Intergenerational knowledge rupture, cultural shame and identity erasure, and digital addiction that is destroying family time. Honorable members, your excellencies, it's important that we understand the danger that we face with pornography. And I keep saying that, look, we don't need to rewrite the script. Today in the United Kingdom, for you to access a pornographic website, you need to put your driver's license for them to be able to determine that you are 18 years. Ask yourself why they're doing that. Because they've seen the danger and the damage that pornography and over-sexualization have done to a generation of young UK citizens. And that's why for us, we believe that in Ghana here, and we're working with going to cabinet on that, to make sure that before you access any X-rated site, you must put either your driver's license or your national ID card, so that we know who you are and who is going to that site, to prevent children from being exposed to such content. This is the real threat. Because when a child is over-sexualized at an early age, it affects their development, it affects their thinking, it affects even their morality and their values and their standards. And the only way to break a people is to go after the children. Because when the children are destroyed and damaged, that culture, that culturalization gets damaged. The fight against Africa is not against those of us sitting in this room. We were a lost case. The fight is against our children. And that's why when myself and my colleagues in Ghana introduced the Family Values Bill, one of our key arguments has been that we're fighting for the innocence of Ghanaian children, because our children must be protected and safe. We were protected by our parents in an African family setting. We must do same for our children and grandchildren. I'll quickly jump to the governance void. And in the governance void, what we see is that who makes the rules? The platforms that your kids are on, that our children, the young people of our countries are on, who makes the rules? Facebook sits in California and determines what is called community standards. Whose community? Does the Facebook community standards set in California understand what the people of Ningo and Pram Pram call community? Or do they know what is community in Hashem's constituency in Malawi? Or in Sarah Opendi's constituency in Uganda? Did they consult you to understand what the community standards of Africa are? No. They set those community standards. And the things that are values to us are excluded by that standard. And the things that our community standards truly abhor are allowed for our children. YouTube's content policies determine which African cultural videos are demonetized. You hear about our young people and our young content creators. One of the biggest challenges I have as minister is that my young creators say, Sam, get us monetization. We want to make money from the content that we put up. The whole concept of monetization is about control, economic control. If our young content creators know that a certain kind of video will get them more money from the platform, they will push that kind of video. What kinds of videos get the most money? Videos that show disrespect for the elderly. Videos that are anti our African values. Meanwhile, videos that educate and videos that promote African values get less monetization on these platforms. So it's a systemic thing. That you put up, you're a content creator and you put videos that build an African identity, you don't get money for those videos. You put up content that is anti-African values, you get money for those videos. And that's the incentive behind the monetization. And that's why as a continent, as one country, we can't fight this. Ghana alone cannot fight this. Nigeria alone cannot fight this. We must become united at the AU level to say this is our position and bring them down there. And let me tell you, honorables, we underestimate the amount of power that we have. By 2030, 1 in every 3 human beings is going to be African. The AI data sets need our data. And so we must bring them to the table at our own terms. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, is afraid to travel to Brussels. Why? Because the EU will arrest him if he sets foot in the EU. The EU is about 460 million people. That's just like West Africa. Nigeria alone makes up almost that number. Africa is 1.5 billion people. Apple is one of the biggest technological companies in the world. The EU, a coalition of 450 million people said, we're not happy that you have a different type of charger, so change your charger. And Apple had to listen to the EU. Now, Apple is going to begin to make new phones that allow you to take out the battery. Why? Because the EU said so. That's the power of collectivity, the power of unity. If 450 million people in the European Union can do that, imagine what 1.5 billion of us in the African Union, if we make our voice one, can do as a continent. We will shape these platforms. But they divide us, and we allow ourselves to be divided. Until we unite, we cannot fight this battle. TikTok's algorithm is shaped by US-China wars. Nobody's talking to the African Union. Meanwhile, their biggest users are on our continent. Only 33 of our 54 member states have data protection laws. Honorable members, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Ghana has a law, Nigeria has a law, Malawi has a law. Just pick that law and also replicate same. Because we have the Malabo Convention. We are more alike than we think we are. Who is enforcing all of this? African parliaments, and that's the heading I put there. I said African parliaments have ceded our legislative chambers to Silicon Valley. Let us reclaim our position as legislators. We make the laws. We determine what our people must do. Let us not cede our power to Silicon Valley. What can we do? Ghana has already, I'm using Ghana because I serve as Minister for Ghana in that capacity when it comes to digital technology. In 2012, we passed the Data Protection Act. As far back as 2012. And as we speak now, we're reviewing that law. In 2020, we passed the Cybersecurity Act. As we speak, we're reviewing it again. Because in 2012, when we passed our data protection law, there was nothing like artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence. So we're bringing it up to speed to meet the realities of today. In 2023, we passed an online safety policy to protect our children. In 2024, we passed the Family Values Bill. It wasn't accented to. We brought it back again. We passed it last Friday. And we'll keep pushing until the president accents to it. African languages make up only 2%. And so tell me how we're going to be able to translate our future to our young people. Now, the problem here is AI is driven by data. Artificial intelligence is only as good as the data that it generates. 80% of African personalized data is processed outside the continent. And that's why as Minister for Communication, we're giving an instruction that every data that is hosted or that involves Ghanaian national data must be hosted locally. And we've put a ban and a stop to hosting of our national data outside in data centers outside of our country. We will host our own data in our own country. The estimated value of African data that is being mined externally is $40 billion a year. $40 billion. That's the value of our data that's being generated every year. How much of that comes to Africa as royalties from big tech? 0%. Not one peso comes back to us. 5 of the top tech companies, American companies, process African data. And just 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump signed an executive instrument, an executive order, mandating that.
Sam George is asking why we are allowing modern technology to do exactly that to our next generation. Then, Sam George takes his analysis straight into the global healthcare system. He asks a heavy question that should make every African think deeply. Why do outside entities care so much about controlling certain specific social and cultural policies in Africa while completely ignoring our urgent healthcare needs? Let's look at the reality on the ground. For decades, African hospitals have faced severe shortages of basic equipment, research funding, and life-saving medicines. Yet, when international organizations bring funding, they often attach heavy conditions that force African nations to change their laws regarding family and social values. Sam George exposes this hypocrisy. He asks why these global powers are not rushing to give us free funding to cure malaria, to build advanced care centers, or upgrade our general healthcare infrastructure. Why is their primary focus always on changing how we raise our children and how we define our family structures? This brings us to the core of his presentation. Sam George argues that we are facing a systematic destruction of everything that makes us African, our traditional values, our moral system, and our family structures are under a heavy coordinated assault from the outside. He makes a powerful point. Every civilization has the absolute right to protect its own culture. Europe protects its heritage Asia protects its tradition. Why is it that when Africa stands up to protect its own children, its own language, and its own moral foundation, we are labeled as backwards? He went ahead to talk about how our children are the main target. And this is the time for us to stop whatever we are feeding these children and protect our values. That some of the sites these kids are allowed to needs to be blocked, because the more we allow these kids to feed themselves with these things that are not supposed to be fed to them, at the end of the day, the child grows up and a lot of things that our children are exposed to, and like some judge is calling for, all these things must come to an end. Like that they are interested in our data, health data. For what reason? Why should Africa sit here and then people will not have access to whatever health data that we have here? And these are the things that we need our leaders to put a stop to. Some judge is calling for all Africans to unite. Because he said, what these people are doing has no connection to us in Africa, to anybody in Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, or whatever. Our language is at stake, and this is our identity. Today you have parents in Africa speaking English to their children because they believe that they are not civilized. And for that matter, being civilized means speaking English to your child, not passing down your local language to them. Like he said, we are fortunate to grow up in an environment that wasn't corrupted, whereby our forefathers or our mothers or our parents were able to pass down certain things to us. It has got to you and I. And all we think about, because we have been brainwashed through education, is that whatever that is West is good. Africa, this is the time for us to wake up. Go to China and see they are proud of their language, their culture, their identity. It's only the black person that thinks that when you remain in your black identity, you are primitive. Some of the things that he said, like there are certain things that we don't even have names for, like mobile phone and other things. These things were brought to us. And as at the time that these things were manufactured, our languages were already formed. And we don't have these things. Whatever that is the African, we have a name for it. So the time for us as Africans to rise up in unity to protect who we are, our identity. And if we truly want to be respected as a people, like the way other people are respected, we need to start accepting who we are. We need to start being who we are. We need to start loving who we are. Black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. So why do we have to allow the systems that are created to destroy the generation of the African? Go to China and see how they are protecting their people. Japan. Whatever Europe is doing is for their people. And we are being forced to accept these things. Anything that is not black should be given back. We should protect our culture, our identity. That is what makes us a people. And this is what will give us the acceptance and the recognition that we are fighting for. And unity above all is the only thing that will give us that. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world. In Africa, West Africa, in Ghana.